I got to meet Steve Howe. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. Man, the journey this particular guitar has taken me on. Just as a quick recap in case you missed my last episodes, in October of 2017, I purchased Steve Howe's old The Les Paul. Those are really fancy guitars. They only made 77 of them, 18 of which in this rare wine red finish. And as far as famous users of these go, he's the only one with the wine red, so owning it was quite iconic. And I just found it on Reverb, talked to the seller, and after a couple of months, he agreed to take my offer. However, at that point in my life, I did not have a personal collection, so I threw it up on Reverb after doing my documentation, and then in March of 2020, it sold and it shipped off to Switzerland. However, it's in late 2020 that I start seriously collecting guitars, and that video that I made before sending that guitar off to its new home happened to blow up and become synonymous with my channel, and I still have a deep passion for Norlin era guitars, especially the rare fancy ones. And I kept in touch with the then owner of it, and he said he will sell it back to me when he's done collecting guitars. And that time came in March of 2024, where I bought it back under the agreement that I will keep it for at least 5 years for what I paid, adjusted for inflation. However, between me selling it and getting it back, Steve Howe's webmaster reaches out to me and says Steve saw the video and he loved it, which I thought was pretty cool that he ended up seeing it. However, when word got around that I was about to get this guitar back, I reached back out to him to see if I could interview Steve Howe about the guitar and its history. We have a nice whole long hour-and-a-half conversation edited down for your viewing pleasure, but it's in that phone call that we talk about a few things, and he invites me to a concert that we weren't allowed to talk about at that time because it wasn't official, but that just happened August 2024. I've never actually been to a concert before, so this was me stepping out of my comfort zone to make something cool happen. The closest concert venue to me was in Cincinnati at the PNC Pavillion. Since it was pretty close to Loveland, Ohio, I checked out Gary's Classic Guitars, and that's how we got that fun series. I show up, not only is it my first concert, but I also have to find where to get my artist will call tickets. But it wasn't too bad. I got one for me and my wife, and we got these fancy purple wristbands, which I think helped me get backstage later on. But with those tickets came a special note of how I'm supposed to meet Steve at the end of the Yes set. Once I was in the venue, I wanted to get to my seat right away, because again, very unfamiliar surroundings here. But right on the stage, it catches my eye. I'm a guitar guy, so there's an ES339 in like this white sparkle finish. The opening act was Hannah Wickland, and you can see her here playing that on stage. I think she did pretty good for an opening act to a relatively unaccepting crowd. Like, they were there for Deep Purple, and yes, definitely not for her. And she was kind of out of her own element. She's used to having a backing band, but she was just a one-woman show. So all things considered, I'd say she did an amazing job with the cards she was dealt, and still try to have fun as she was dancing off stage. But about a half hour after her set, you get the music blaring, and then you see the man himself right there, Steve Howe, walking out on stage with his new crewmates here, making the Yes magic happen. First one he was using is his legendary double pick-guarded ES Artist, which is a Norlin era Moog-equipped electronics guitar. And then for good people, we had to switch out to something a little bit more flavorful. But further into that song, he brings out his legendary and iconic ES175. That is the Steve Howe guitar, in my opinion. So it was great to see him do that, and then break into the next part of the song. I gotta give a shout out to the bassist. I like the scarf and outfit choice. You can't really see it there, but the pants match it with like the ripped and the red underneath. He also used his 175 for this song, but it had some cool like wah effects to the guitar playing, and that caught my attention. Then moving on from there, he just had this whole acoustic solo just to himself. That was certainly a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I don't know anything about the guitar that he was using here, because it's outside of my wheelhouse, but he sure made it sound good. And then he broke out the slide guitar, having some fun with the lap steel.
Well, thank you very, very much for being at the show tonight. We got one more song for you.
Then he switches back to the ES Artist before coming back with probably the most iconic Yes song, in my opinion, Roundabout. It's just perfect. I couldn't quite see what he was using on stage for the opening intro bit, but that was magical. And then, of course, he's got his ES175 behind him on that he switches into. And then at the end of the set, I was worried about the safety of that ES175, if it was going to drop or not. But now I'm just seeing this for the first time. The bassist's shoes also match pants and scarf. But it's after this point when I have to call that number, figure out where I'm supposed to go. I didn't know if Steve was coming to me or if I was going up the stage and then into a back room. No, they had these like white Sprinter vans. Anybody who was invited backstage all gathered essentially at the entrance, and they took us to the backstage area. Imagine like a high school gym's locker room area that just had a bunch of doors. It was nothing like too crazy special, but you've got the people's names, what band they're with. It was essentially just a small, tiny room, but I wasn't invited to the show because now we're magically best friends because I own his old guitar. There was a reason we needed to meet. I bought the pickups out of his old quadraphonic Les Paul Custom. I forgot to ask him to sign the back of the pickups, but at least I remember the most important thing. I wasn't able to bring the Les Paul with me due to the venue's rules saying absolutely no musical instruments can be brought in, because that was what I wanted to do, reunite him with the guitar, have a nice photo. Maybe he could have played it on stage one last time for old time's sake, even if it does weigh 11 pounds. Swapped bands just for a moment to do Heat of the Moment or something, but realistically that was expecting way too much. But I brought the back plate of the Les Paul with me, because you gotta remember that guitar still has his blacklight signature on the back of the headstock. But you guys know me, I'm not about plastering signatures on a guitar in like a highly visible location, so I asked him to sign the back side of the back plate. That way it's just I know about it, people who have watched this video will know about it, as I have no intentions of ever selling this guitar again. That was just a personal little thing for me, and I got a chuckle out of his response to me asking him if he would sign the back side of the back plate.
Well, people without taste would have said, put it on the outside. Yeah. See, you're someone who's got taste. Oh yeah. I don't want to cover up that number because it's 7. Did you say number 7?
Thank you so much. And that was the end of our meeting. So thank you so much, Steve, for inviting me out and selling these pickups. I have a few different ideas rolling around in my head as to what I'm going to do with these, but let's just say this is not the end of this journey necessarily. But as far as talking about the Steve Howe, the Les Paul, probably for the near future. But after that, we got back in the van. The van driver, by the way, is very nice. So if you happen to watch this video, it was nice meeting you. I'm sorry I forgot your name, but I do remember that we all started with A's. And we were going to start a band. But speaking of bands, the final show of the night was Deep Purple. So as I'm trying to find my seat, it's Highway Star right away starting the show. And that was a loud set. But they've got this new guitar player. He plays PRS guitars, so you can see a few of those throughout the show. He had this kind of interesting black bursted one with a TV white back. Then he moved into this more blue burst, and he's a phenomenal guitar player, but hearing it on stage, you can really notice how compressed sounding PRS guitars are, especially coming off of Steve Howe's set with like more vintage style pickups. But one of the coolest things about the show is the guy who played Mr. Crowley intro was the keyboardist, and he also did things with Focus. And the lead man of Deep Purple, he still got it. He did a great job stringing all the songs together, painting like a story, doing some funny anecdotes. But then after that, I loaded my wife up and we took a trip 3 hours north. And that'll be the third and final stop of my business trip. Don't get your hopes up too much. This was definitely the main feature and Gary's. But it'll be another different episode. But here's all the stuff back home. This now becomes case candy for this guitar. Backstage passes, the tickets, and now the newly signed Steve Howe back plate. If you were curious what he was talking about with the 7, the Les Paul parts actually had a numbering system on the back of the wooden parts. I think that's how they made their sets. It's something that I'm still researching with every example I get, and he didn't want to cover that over, so you can see he just narrowly missed it there. And I'm sure some people think I'm crazy not having him sign like the pick guard, but I wanted to retain its original beauty. I thought about having him do the backside of the truss rod cover, but I was scared this would break in my wife's purse on the way back. This was a bit more sturdy. And if you're curious, how do you get just the pickups and not the guitar? In the interview, we talked about it. He had it restored back to the staple Alnico 5 pickup. And then I'm not sure how he ended up keeping these, because the old listing for it says it was included, but maybe they just worked out a deal where the other buyer didn't want it. So it was just sitting in his parts drawer, so yeah, of course I want these. But you can see the wear matches up perfectly, but the rest of that is a story for another episode. Alright, Troglodytes, I hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.